Half the fun of killing monsters in Monster Hunter Wilds is turning all their loot into brand new weapons and armor. The other half is watching Gemma do it. If you're new to Monster Hunter, it might be confusing how this massive tree of weapons works. Why are there so many different types of armor? How does elemental resistance work? What is alpha and who is the beta? In this video today, I want to help you by breaking down the weapons and armor system for Monster Hunter Wilds. We'll talk about equipment, skills, set bonuses, decorations, different armor rarities, resistance and elemental attacks, affinity, defense, and close the video out with some tips on how to get resources as well as how to pick items. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. So with that being said, let me give you like the biggest quote unquote takeaways from this video. Weapon elements do not apply elemental blights. For instance, fire damage weapons do not inflict a monster with fire blight. They just do damage against the monster's fire resistance stat. This is not the same for the status effect weapons like blast or what have you, and we'll talk about that in its respective section. Armor defense has breakpoints every 80 points, reducing damage by half at 80, 1/3 at 160, 1/4 at 240. You get the picture from here. Pretty much every 80 armor increases the denominator by 1. That's the bottom number of a fraction for those who hate math. Elemental resistance is a flat percentage modifier, meaning 7 fire resistance reduces fire damage by 7. There's more to that because defense is also taken into consideration, but at 20 of any elemental resistance, you become resistant to that element's blight. So at 20 dragon res, you are immune to dragon blight. Lastly, the difference between alpha and beta armor once you get in high rank is that alpha armor has more or higher level skills, but less decoration slots or quality of decoration slots, while beta has the opposite. Less or lower level skills with more decoration slots or quality slots. But that's the too long didn't watch this entire video. Feel free to navigate to any part of the video that interests you the most. These in chapters below. But if that's all you wanted to know, go ahead and shut the video down. I want to respect your time and get you back to hunting some monsters. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe if you find the information in this video helpful. Also, if you've not yet picked up the game, you can do so using my Fanatical link in the description. I think it's still 18% off through them, and I get an 8% commission, which goes towards my mini Aussies Endless Toy Fund. Lastly, check me out on Twitch, linked below, where I stream Monster Hunter as well as plenty of other games. Well, let's get started on my ultimate weapon and armor upgrade guide in Monster Hunter Wilds. So the majority of this video is just going to be taking place in menu screens with me talking about stuff. But the first thing that we need to do is make sure we change a setting in your options. And you've probably seen this in a million tip videos and all over Reddit and what have you, but just for the sake of continuity, Gemma, watch out with those obliques. Let's go ahead and go into our options menu. And we're going to click the first tab here, and we're going to go all the way. Here's the first page. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, to the third page right here. The very bottom of the third page, let's say the bottom there, it says 3 out of 4, weapon attack power display. It will, natively by default, be display with coefficient. Displays a weapon's base attack power using a coefficient unique to each weapon type. We don't want that because this allows you to really compare specific damage across multiple weapons. So for example, if I want to compare what my gun lance's damage is to my bow gun or my bow, I can do that very easily because this displays it without coefficient. So we want to make sure we select this. Now, we're not really going to be talking about that in this video, but it's something that I feel will help you as you go throughout the game so that you can decide, oh, you know what? I think it's time for me to move to the longsword. I've got one that just does so much more damage. I want to try that out for a bit, what have you. So that is our first little thing to go into. Well, now let's talk about weapons since we brought this up. So from the smithy upgrade menu, we're going to go over here to upgrade weapons, and let's just click sword and shield. And we have our weapon tree. You can search the weapon tree if you want, or I'm sorry, we'll kind of filter it by affinity, sharpness, defense bonus, element slot, sluts, equipment skills, and remove. I think I said sluts, but I meant slots. So you've got those two, all that action right there. This is important because when you are playing this game, it's important to know your weapon and what kind of weapon you want to build yourself into. There are lots of different weapons, and with that, there's kind of a little bit of an analysis paralysis as to what weapon is going to make the most sense for what you're doing. So for example here, when I take a look at affinity makes a lot of sense if I'm playing with weapons, and we'll talk about this in our last section more, that are a little bit faster. Dual blades, especially bow and arrow, stuff like that. Those make a lot of sense. Another thing here is elements. Elements are going to make more sense for faster weapons versus I don't want an element all the time for slower weapons, because that raw damage and the momentum of the weapon is going to give me a bit of a damage buff, versus a fast weapon gives me access to more fire damage quicker. So there are all those things, and that is, again, kind of saved for its own section. But in this tree, we have our individual weapons, and we have all the information on this weapon here. I do not make that weapon. We have all this information over here in the equipment info section. We have attack, affinity, element, sharpness, slots, and defense bonus. This will differ from weapon to weapon and what corresponds here. As you can see, like sharpness, for example, if I go all the way up here to this one, it has more of a sharpness gauge, meaning that the thing won't dull out as long. It has more to take advantage of. Basically, you want to try to get into those little blue bars. And you have your attack. Attack is the biggest thing we're going to be looking at in any of our weapons. But you also get element with that attack, which is important here, because that is going to give you more damage or a buff to your weapon, depending upon, is it a base elemental or is it some sort of status effect? And we'll talk about that in just a second here. But in addition to that, we also get skills. And that's the biggest portion of this that you probably haven't been able to take a look at if you're brand new to the game. So let's come over here to Hope Sword 3. And if you're on mouse and keyboard, you press R to bring up your submenu. If you are on Xbox, it's Y. If it's a PS5, it's a triangle. But we have this button right here that says Skill Info. So I'm going to go ahead and press Skill Info. So through here, we get our equipment skills. This is the first mentioning of this in the video, but equipment skills are present are both weapons and armor. And equipment skills are very important because they're ways that you can break out of the mold of certain things, increase the benefits of what a specific thing is doing. Say, for example, I'm using bow and arrow or sword and shield in a lot of my builds. Well, then I want to maximize, say, my stamina, my affinity, my guard, my evade, whatever it is. And again, that's more for the last section of the video. But these equipment skills are important because you can also see what level it is, as well as what benefits happen throughout the levels that you go through. You see this over here, it says equipment skills. So this is just Hope Sword 3. We have one little blip here on critical eye. It's telling me that it's going to give me one level. Well, this level that it gives me is cumulative across all of the gear present on my character, including my decorations, which we'll talk about in a section or two. And what that means is this says critical eye 1. Let's say I had 2 or 3 other items that said critical eye 1. Well, then all those things equate to level 2 or 3, whatever it is. So this allows me to plan out and say, okay, well, hey, I want to mitigate the affinity penalty of a specific weapon. Well, I know I need to get critical eye, whatever number percentage on other things to negate that. Or maybe I just want to really stack that. Well, that's how you can stack it. So looking at equipment skills is crucial, especially for your weapons, because you're going to be focusing on them and not just the weapon, but across your armor as well, because it's going to fit into the style of the weapon. So let's try and find like an actual, which one am I using? Aren't I using Rathalos? No, I'm not. I'm not using this one either. I'm using this one. Well, this was one I did use. Now I'm using this one. There we go. Aha. So why I chose this one. It does 170 attack, and it has 120 dragon element. That gets added into the attack. So it, for all intents and purposes, does 290 damage, but 120 of it is dragon, which goes against the resistance, and that's got its own section too. So what I wanted though from here is guard level 2. Decreases the impact of attacks and reduces stamina depletion by 30%. Because I'm using a sword and shield, this directly gives me a benefit. One thing that is worth noting here is that this weapon in specific has an affinity penalty of minus 10%. So I'm going to have to find or do something across my build to try to mitigate that minus 10% to affinity here. Either it's going to be a decoration, armor, whatever it is, that critical eye skill that we talked about, finding that and putting it onto the weapon is going to be crucial for me. But we also have decorations, which will have their own section. And we have a total kind of active skills that are across my entire suit. This will be present too when we look at our armor. But this gives me a sense of what I am going to lose and what I am going to gain. So for example, what am I doing? With guard, with this specific weapon, I am going to lose critical element. Hold on. There we go. I am going to lose critical element because it's on, I'm either going to have it replace my active primary weapon, which is a bow, which has critical element, ballistics, and special ammo boost. And I'm going to gain guard. It just shows me the glowing green. That's the gain. This is the loss. And this is everything else in between. So it just allows me to kind of get a sense for how I am going to capitalize on having this item in my build, in my set. Now, one thing also to worth noting here is, let me go ahead and go to skill info, is that this will also contribute, if possible, to any set bonuses or group skills. As you can see, all these set bonuses and group skills I currently have are relegated to armor, which we'll talk about, but it's just worth noting each one of these panels, what they do and what have you. So it just gives you a sense of how this works. And the other portion of this video, or I'm sorry, this section, is the forging materials, the forging materials that this thing will cost. And this tells me that I need this much, and this is how much is in my stash. It's worth really paying attention to this because you can add things to a wish list, which makes it a lot easier. And it gives you a sense too of like how easy it is or how hard it is to get some of these things based off of the color coding of them. If it's red, I just don't have it. Otherwise, I probably have it, right? But it is pretty important to take a look at these forging materials to get a sense for how you're going to progress through making each and one of these weapons. Now, that sums up our weapons. Let's now go into repeating a lot of this information in our armor conversation. It is just a quick aside though. You do have a forge list, which is pretty much the entire weapon tree put into a list, which you can then sort based off of certain things. Like for example, I was looking for affinity, so I did this, or I can organize it by attack power if I want. So, okay, this one's got the highest attack power. This one has the lowest. So you can organize this by forge list if you want to make it easier. And lastly, you have upgrade list, which is just going to do the same thing here for you to give you a sense of the progression of what you're dealing with and what you can do with what you've already made. So this gives you, hey, I have the precursor to this. Here we go. Well, I don't have the precursor to this, but I have something that steps me into the direction of it. So you have all these things. You can use these tools if you so wish. By and large, though, I just kind of stick with the weapon tree and let it just take me through everything. But now let's talk about armor. So with armor, we get a lot of the same information that we had with our weapon, but more extrapolation to be had here. So to start us off, we have some filters at the very top. If I press left stick, it's show all, or it's the different types of armor, right? Male or female armor, or show owned. And then default here is basically applying another filter here, sort by criteria, for our all of our armor. And I said default, I meant right stick. If you are on a keyboard, that is, let's see, Shift or X. And when you start the game, you have low rank armor. That's the only armor you have access to. And as you discover more creatures, you will get access to more and different armors as we kind of push through this list. And you can use the right stick to shoot to the very bottom of it. Then this is all of your low rank stuff. Once you complete the story, you have your high rank, and that gives you different types of armor in alpha and in beta. Now, what this is going to give you is the benefit of understanding how alpha and beta works, but also gives you the way to your ability to get different types of armor that are going to have just way better stats because they're now going to take advantage of, not tempered, that's a different thing altogether. But better, higher armor parts, which have, again, better stats across the board. Eventually, we'll get access to a master rank with a paid DLC in the future because they just always do that. And what you really want to take note of here, let's just go back to our low rank because it's simplified. Let's go to Guardian Rathalos because it's cool looking. You have each individual piece of armor right now. And it's very much like with our weapon. We bring up our submenu, we go to skill info, and we can take a look at what we get from this. So we have equipment skills, just like we did before with our weapons. Intimidator reduces the chance small monsters will attack after spotting you, has no effect on certain monsters. And we have the corresponding skill level that this will grant us, not the skill level on our entire suit. But we also have two new things, two different types of sets. So you'll typically have a set that is linked to the type of armor that it is. This is Rathalos's Flare. This is Rathalos's specific set bonus. Chance to deal additional fire damage after landing an attack. This one is a generic set bonus. This one is in particular, I think, is like the dragon one. Increases recovery speed of stamina and red gauge when near milk crystals. There are multiple suits that have this specific set bonus. And what you need to take a look at here is this number right there. So this tells me that this requires four pieces of armor to turn on, but this only requires 3. So something that I had done in the very beginning of the game was I mixed and matched pieces. I think I had these 3, or I had just these 2 pieces right here. Go to submenu and skill info, because I just wanted to really pull in latent power and whatever the benefit was. I was not getting the actual set bonus from Thunderous Roar, nor was I getting the generic set bonus of Lord's Favor. This one helps out whenever you're using any kind of hunting horn. So you can see that being able to stack pieces here gives you the ability to weave in and out of specific set bonuses. And it's important to note too that there are sets or armor specific bonuses and then generic set bonuses like this one. Let me see if I can remember off the top of my head here. So here's another one that has Lord's Favor, right? These are 2 different armor sets that both give Lord's Favor. They just require 3 pieces of it. So if armor is across 5 pieces, I could put 4 pieces of Ray Dao on and then another piece of this on and still get both benefits, right? So you can take advantage of that and mix and match and just get generic ones if you so wish. There are sometimes you'll just get these single one-off ones that are not part of a grander suit. They just have one single piece, but they still will contribute to a generic set. So keep those things in mind because they're important to learn how to stack these individual sets up. It will become more important as you jump into higher rank, of course, but it's worth noting and understanding now at this level. Also, you can take a look at this, right? This, again, will show me the equipment skills that I'm gaining and the equipment skills that I am losing. And sometimes it goes onto multiple pages. It'll show me these set bonuses, now that we have set bonuses to take a look at, that I am gaining or losing, or group skills. So that's the generic set bonus that I talked about. It's called a group skill because if I look at this, temporarily increases attack power when using effects like melody effects that affect companions in range. Or we go to this one, increases recovery speed of stamina and red gauges when near work stock. So it's like those group skills will not always affect the group. It's just worth noting that. It's just that's the grouping for whatever that armor type is called. Just because that term can make you think otherwise. Again, though, going through this list, we have all that information, right? We have all the benefits of what we're going to gain, what we're going to lose by choosing this item. But what I want you to see is this little thing to the left right here, right? Usually denotes the, armor type or armor style is a good way to put it. If I hover over that, it's assuming that I'm going to wear every single piece of that style, of that set. And then I can see, then I can see all the green is flashing because those are all the skills I'm now about to get. All the red's flashing because those are all the skills I'm about to lose. Again, over here, I'm going to lose Ray Dao's Voltage and Rathalos's Flare, but I'm now going to get Nepteron Alert and lose Lord's Favor. Man, I'm crushing it today. But again, you can see how this affects you, but this gives you a sense of how this affects you across the entirety of the set, rather than just, again, looking at the equipment skills in the center here. Nursala's skills for this entire set are this, but this is just ambush versus this is ambush level 3 because level 1 ambush, level 2 ambush, level 3 ambush. So you can get a way to put them all together. Now, we've talked about those skills, those set bonuses, those group bonuses, all that action. Let's also talk about high rank real quick with alpha and beta. So let's jump down to just Rathalos here. Here is Rathalos's alpha set. And you can see, let me jump over to here. Let me just look at this one instead. If you take a look at this helmet, evade window is level 2, constitution is level 1. Let's look at the beta version of this helmet. Constitution is level 1 and evade window is level 1. What's the difference? I mean, we just lost our skills. That's not too great. Well, take a look over here at this photograph, at the slot section. So I'm getting level 2 slots and level 2 slots on this Rathalos beta helmet. The alpha helmet just has 2 level 1 slots. So that's your trade-off. You're going to get more skills or higher level skills with alpha, but lower level slots or amount of slots, versus beta is going to give you lower level skills or lower skills in general, but you're going to get higher amount of slots or higher level slots. If I take a look at each one of these pieces, you can see that the chest piece is an example here. The beta gives me 2 level 1. The alpha, just 1 level 1. Hands here gives me 2 level 1 and 1 level 2. The hands conversely are 2 level 1s. Just to show this direct difference here. And you can just kind of pop back and forth and see that bonus right there and there. There you go. You can see all of it. You can also do this too. You can get a direct look at all of the skills for Rathalos Beta are Adrenaline Rush 4, Constitution 3, Evade Window 3. Rathalos Alpha is going to give us 5, 5, and 4 of those same skills. So it's handy to know these things because I didn't at first, and I was like, dude, I'm just slamming my head. I'm slamming my head against the wall, and I don't understand all this crap. And once you kind of put a little time looking into it, it does click. This is also information that has been present in a lot of Monster Hunters. It's stuff that I just totally forgot about with Monster Hunter World. So hopefully this gives you a really good context on how your weapon, your armor, your skills, those bonuses all work together. Before we get into the weeds talking about resistances and defense, let's talk very quickly about decorations. So in case you don't know how to do this, because it is kind of tricky the first time, you have to go to change equipment from the blacksmith. That was a weird wave and smile. And this allows you to swap out your decorations. If you do not have decorations, you cannot swap them out or even take a look. You have to look at them, I think, in your inventory in your camp. Take, for example, my head. I can only swap off my headpiece, right? I can't press sub menu. Oh, no, press the right. It's right on your directional pad. If I go over here to this one, I've got a decoration right on my directional pad, allows me to take a look at it. If I'm on mouse and keyboard, that is, let's see, it's D to edit decorations. So editing your decorations is crucial though, because decorations are something that allow you to take advantage of any penalties that you otherwise would have as a lack of gear, or because maybe you have affinity penalties, you're trying to stack a specific element, you're trying to do something, whatever it is. So having these slots here allows you to put your decorations onto your armor as you see fit, or weapons for that matter. And you need to, again, have the decoration slot to even do this. So let's take a look at Dragon Jewel, because I'm using these dual blades that are dragon weapons. Where is Dragon Jewel? Down here. So this says increases dragon element power, attack power by plus 40 at level 1. So since I'm just putting 1 in there, it's just going to do that for me. And the little parenthetical notation there is going to tell you, what am I doing? Is going to tell you what level it is. It's not the quantity. The quantity is out over here. I've got 2 in my stash of level 1 paralyzer jewels, versus this, I have got 1 level 2 true shot jewel. So this gives you a sense of how these things work. But these decorations, don't worry about like putting them on things and be like, oh, I gotta take it off before I do anything. So let's take a look at here. True shot jewel. I'm just gonna put the blaze jewel on, and let's go back over here and let's go ahead. See at the very bottom, it shows what items have the that jewel active. And it's relegated to whatever slot can fit. So I can only put level 1 slots in these blades. So it's only showing me level 1 here. If I switch level to page 2, it will show me level 2. And if I had more level 1s, it would keep showing me. It's just going to show you the order with the ones that can fit in, with the unavailable ones because of weapons below, and then after that, unavailable ones in general. So this right here says Dragon Jewel, it's already on these blades, right? Let's go ahead and put this blaze jewel on, and it'll just ask me, it's being used on another piece of equipment, if you want to remove it. So you can go ahead and do that if you so wish. Like maybe you're using these two items now, and you swapped off from a gun lance, and your gun lance had the other jewel. Just go ahead and swap it in. No big deal. And again, just like our skills on our armor and on our weapons, these will then add to our cumulative level across everything. So if I want to say put special ammo boost on my bow, well, I can't because I don't have level 2, but regardless, if I had this on another piece that was level 1, like I had on some gloves, well, putting this on here at level 1 would then make me have a cumulative 2 levels. That I said that super convolutedly, but what I'm saying is you just add up all the damn levels across your entire gear. It's that straightforward, but I think that this system is a little difficult to get into initially because it's kind of thrown at you very quickly, and if you don't really read it carefully, you completely miss decorations, but they're super important because, like I said, you can either stack elements, take care of penalties that you've built into your gear through either specific weapons and armor. You can help out with that through decorations and what have you. You can even help out with resists and whatnot with decorations on armor, all sorts of fun stuff. Let's take a break from the forge and head on over to my personal tent. Take your shoes off, please. So let's talk now, since we just brought it up a little bit, about defense and elemental resistance. There are equations for both of these, and I will give you those equations, but they're kind of going to be a little, it's just unnecessary to kind of go through it. Let's start first with our elemental damage, because we can play that together with defense a little bit better after this. You know what? No, I've changed my mind. We're going to talk about defense first. This is how you know I don't use a script. So defense, the way that this works in this game, it is done through the equation of 80 divided by 80 plus your defense number. So in this equation, it would be 80 divided by 80 plus 139, because that is my current defense. Yeah, you can do that if you want. That'll give you the amount of raw damage reduction that you will deal with when you fight things. Who cares? I'm not going to sit there and look at this and crunch that number every single time. It is, of course, on a sliding scale, but there are big breakpoints that are important. And it's divisible by 80. 80 is the biggest breakpoint. So every 80 defense, you will reduce the amount of damage taken to you by a significant amount. So at 80 defense, your damage is reduced by 1/2. At 160, it's 1/3, so on and so forth. It increases that denominator, the bottom number in the fraction, by 1. So if I were to have 240 defense, then I would have damage reduced by 1/4. I'm sorry. I would not have damage reduced. I would receive 1/4 of the damage. Further on, if I were to have 320 defense, then I would only receive 1/5 of that damage. So that's an important thing to know, because it's going to play directly into the way resistance work. And it comes down to you and how you're going to be setting up your armor and your weapons too, right? Because if you're using swords and shields and such, they're going to give you defense. But why that's all important too is because this helps you in determining what kind of weapon or what kind of armor you're going to set up for yourself depending on the weapon, right? So let's say you can see how I'm set up like a ranger, right? I'm using a bow and arrow and dual blades. I'm probably going to want to stick then to armor that has certain things that are going to give me bonuses towards that. That probably means they're not going to have the highest defense. It just could be luck of the draw, whatever it is. Or I might opt to try to choose some pieces that give me general benefits, but just give me high armor so I can hit a specific breakpoint. So right now I've got 139. I probably should make a piece of armor that pushes my defense to 160 to hit that breakpoint. So now I only take 1/3 of the damage a monster deals to me. If you're struggling, you're getting killed left and right, work on your defense. And I know that is a super self-explanatory statement, but I had no idea that it was that potent of a damage reduction, because this now plays into our resistance. Those two numbers are put together to determine how much damage is dealt to you based off of the element that has done damage to you. If something attacks you with his claws, it's just raw defense, right? Unless, for example, they have an elemental imbuement upon their what the hell's it called? Upon their claws or whatever. So how that works is when you look at the numbers that you're seeing here, it's just a flat percentage. Think of it that way. There's the equation, right? It's 1 minus elemental resistance divided by 100. You don't need to do that. Just take the number. It's less 100. Okay. So example is thunder resistance. I've got 7. So I am only going to take 93% damage of a thunder strike raw from thunder. But we're going to take your defense value and multiply it by your thunder resistance value, and that is going to give you the actual number of damage you are going to receive from, say, thunder. You don't need to do all that computation. I'm just letting you know how that system actually works, because the thing that matters with your resistance is getting these to 20. If you get them to 20, then that means you will be immune to any blight effect from the corresponding element. You will no longer get fire blight from fire, water blight, thunder blight, ice blight, and I think it's like frost blight actually, and then dragon blight. You won't get those blight attacks from all of these. That is crucial. And keep in mind, if you have a negative number, it's a bonus for the monster. So I will take 3% more. I will take 103% damage from water attacks, or 107% from ice, which I found out very painfully when I fought an ice monster. So these things are important to know, not necessarily the ins and outs of the equations, but more understanding how, okay, I now know I just have to get to 20, boom, and I'll be good. I know I just have to get to 80, 160, 240, 320, whatever breakpoint it is with my defense to make my defense actually work for me. There's no reason to jump into all the other stuff of the actual heavy math unless you really want to get into it. So again, just one final example here. If you were to have 25 fire resistance, you would only take 75% fire damage from a target, but the actual damage would be your defense percentage times that fire damage percentage, not 25, the damage you would receive. And that is the amount of damage you receive from a fire attack. And pivoting to our next section, let's talk about our elemental damage type as it affects our player, or as it pertains to our player. So we have talked about our blight attacks, right? We've got, well, this is an ice, this is water, here we go, water, this is lightning, this is fire, this is dragon. So those are blight attacks elements. That would, if the monster were to attack us, it would inflict a dragon blight attack onto us. It would build up in our exposure to it, our threshold, and we would eventually get hit with dragon blight. We do not do dragon blight damage ever. Well, yeah, we do dragon damage, not dragon blight damage. We never are going to inflict any of the blights. Those are status effects we're going to talk about in 2 seconds here. But it's, look at this number, 170 plus 120. So it's going to do 290 damage. 120 of it is going to be dragon damage. And we'll put that together when we take a look at a monster in a second. Now, the other things are blast, paralysis, sleep. This one's poison. Where's poison? There's poison. And poison. Those are important. I think rage is also one. Or I think, no, they can just get rage. They can just get rage. Sorry. Those are important because when you look at the Princess Rapier, it does not do 280 damage. It does 160 damage, and the poison here builds towards an invisible threshold. You can see if they build it on you. It's in the upper left above your health bar. On the monster, you can't see it. But the higher the value there, the faster or it will build towards poisoning the monster, which will then do its own set of damage. Or we'll put it to sleep, which then allows you to do more stuff. Or we'll paralyze it, that then allows you to do more stuff. Or blast and boom, 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 kaboom. So you've got a bunch of stuff that you can play with these. Just know that they do less outright damage because the point of them is to afflict a status effect, which then opens the door to a big amount of damage, a big point where you can switch weapons. Your team can do a bunch of stuff. Whatever it is, or maybe you've built very heavily into certain things like poison or paralysis. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it. But if you notice that you aren't doing as much damage because you're, say, using this guy here, well, it's because all that damage isn't going through the element. It's just simply being, it's sacking up paralysis. So just know that, because it works different than these, like I said, which is going to be raw damage into the thing, with 120 of it being dragon. And we put this together by looking very quickly at the field guide for a large monster. Just bring up here's this guy. If we go to this, effective status effects, effective items, recommended elemental attacks. So we get an idea of, we get an idea of what kind of status effects they're going to afflict upon us and what elements that they are weaker to, right? So this tells us ice and thunder, that's going to be the way to go here. And there are also, it's not like a counterpoint, but elemental damage in and of itself basically will, I don't want to say it bounces off something, like like things that do dragon damage are weak to dragon damage and ice and thunder. But that's not always the case. There's always things that are kind of that kind of bounce around. So thunder element, for example, is strong versus dragon and water, but it's weak versus ice. There's a lot of like natural stuff in here, like ice element, for example, is strong versus dragon and thunder, but you guessed it, weak versus fire. And fire element, for example, too, is strong versus ice, but well, it's weak versus water. It's basically you're playing Pokemon here. Water is strong versus thunder and weak versus fire. So you know those things going into it, so that you know, have a good sense that, okay, I'm using a dragon effect thing. This is going to be pretty good against another dragon creature, or something that just doesn't have high dragon resist. If it has that high dragon resist, then I'm going to effectively lose damage against that thing, because it will resist that portion of the damage I'm dealing, which is 120 dragon, right? So again, real quick recap here. With your elemental attacks, they will not do blights. Their resistance will hit the creature's resistance to that specific element, but also you have your status affecting effects, enchantments, I guess you want to call them, whatever you want to call them, that will build and not do actual damage. So paralysis, blast, sleep, poison, what have you. So just keep those things in mind as you choose the element on your weapon. And a real quick section though, I want to talk very fast about affinity. Affinity is just a critical chance. It's just crit. It's just straight up crit. Okay, it's 15%, 10%, whatever that affinity percentage number is. That's your increased chance to crit. So down over here, 10%, 0, 5, 10, -5. Now, if you have -5, if you have a negative affinity number, you have a chance to do a feeble hit, which you don't want to ever do. So you can offset negative numbers using decorations or by using weapon and armor skills. That's all worth noting. I just wanted to quickly show that affinity is a big part of this process. It'll also come down to the type of weapon you're using. Maybe, you know, hey, I'm going to go with a lance here. Let's just look at one of these. Let's look at one of these. There, -5, -10, -15. 15% on this, but it just doesn't do a ton of damage. 10% on this. So you'll notice that some of these will just have different styles of affinity. Like there's a lot of affinity in bows. There's not as much affinity in lance. It's actually negative. So you'll have to offset this with decorations and armor and what have you, because you don't want to be doing feeble hits. I just wanted to quickly do a section here on affinity, since this is a weapon and armor guide. So all that is good and all. But how do you get resources for all these items and weapons and stuff that we're talked about? Upgrading is great, and understanding how to upgrade is also crucial, but how do you really tap into that? Well, let's go ahead and bring up our map. We've got all these creatures that are wandering around. I can go ahead and now press the detailed map. This one is crucial because the detailed map just gives me a lot more information, but I want to go over to the world map. This is the big boy. Through here, I can see what monsters are active where on what parts of the map. And why that's crucial is I can also see what those monsters are going to drop. So let's look at this Hirabami here. Oops. Yeah, we'll do this. I press all the wrong buttons in the middle of this very good video. There we go, X. This tempered Hirabami here. Hirobami. I can't pronounce crap. So you can see that there's two different ones here. One's obviously tempered, so that has to do with a whole different set of items that is in its own video. But I can see the items that this is going to give me, and I can see that it's going to give me a rare one, a gem, as it were. That's a wyvern gem or whatever it is. Let's see. So we're going to select this and press create quest, and I can see all the rewards that this is going to give me. Weapon shards for the Arisian armor items. Then I can see the valuable material I'm going to get, and I get a wyvern gem. So I can see what I'm going to get from that. That's pretty crucial. And I can just jump around. Okay, here's two different Rathians that are going to give me two different sets of items. Or I jump over here and just look at this. Just jump through this section and get a sense for what items you need for the items you're trying to create. Like I want to create some Rathalos armor from the generic Rathalos, not the Guardian Rathalos, which of course he's not up at all. Why would he be? But let's just assume I want to do Rathian here. So we're going to go to Rathian. I'm going to create a quest, and then I've got two options. You have a field survey, or you have save as investigation. Field survey will immediately begin a quest, and you just go and kill the thing. Save it as an investigation, though, you can then do it 3 times, and you can do it with your friends. The best thing that you should be doing when you see these specific monsters that have items that you want, save it as an investigation, always. Doing a field survey is more like, I'm just trying to raise my hunter rank or just get like a thing here or there. Because what we do is we come over here to Alma, to post and join a quest. Here's an example of a field survey history that I've done before with a friend. I saved it. So you can save investigations that you do with friends, or I have my own investigations that I've saved. So this gives me the chance to harvest this thing 3 times, and whatever things I get through the random occurrence of fighting it, I'm going to get, but I'm also going to guaranteed get those 4 items, well, those 6, 7, 8 items listed in the bonus reward section. So this gives me the chance to really particularly harvest the hell out of a specific creature if I so want to. And the best way to really do this too is utilize your wish list. So just pressing nothing right. Let's go to my high rank all the way at the bottom. You can see my Rathalos here. I've pinned it and put it into my wish list, meaning that I can now see all the items that I need, and it will pop up in the middle of a fight. It'll tell me you've got this item from your wish list. It'll tell me if the item's going to drop on it and it's in a wish list. Whatever the situation is, it tells me and shows me, so it's a lot more transparent, so I don't need to keep checking through menus and going through all that crap. Use your wish list. It'll make this whole process a lot easier. To conclude our video, we've gone through so many things, but how do you upgrade? How do you really choose what items are going to be best for your situation? And really that comes down to you. What are you using? What weapons are you using? What elements do you want to focus on? What creatures are you attacking? You should never think of your build as a static thing in Monster Hunter. It should be an always evolving thing based off of items you have access to, new creatures you've discovered, or new targets you're going to fight. It's an always moving thing. For example, I was fighting something that did a ton of fire damage, so I moved to higher fire resistant stuff because it was just completely working me over. But let me give you some general rule of thumb here so you can approach this from a more measured stance. So for example, when it comes to your weapon, you want to maximize your elemental damage on weapons that have a lot of fast attacks. So if you're using, I was going to say this top section, it's not. Using the sword and shield, the dual blades, the charge blade, light bow gun, the bow. Where's the hunting horn? The hunting horn, and the heavy bow gun. These will all really, and the insect glaive, sorry. These will all benefit from maxing out your elemental damage. Putting a lot of elemental damage on them is great because they do a lot of hits repeatedly over time, or just do a ton of stacks of hits. For example, the charge blade can turn that whirring chain axe. That's huge because it does a bunch of hits all at once, and each one of those will do elemental damage, either that raw elemental damage you talked about or the status affecting elementals, whatever you want. So take advantage of those things. Now, what time do I want raw damage? Raw damage just being no elements. Let's just look at show for an example of raw damage. This would be raw damage, right? Bone weapons, no elements whatsoever. It's just attack, a high attack value, right? So the weapons that are going to benefit that are then the slow ones, because there's also a motion value that is dealt in with the attack of those heavy weapons. So using a greatsword, a longsword, a hammer, a lance, a switch axe, a gun lance, I believe, yeah. I have it all written down on the side. Also a charge blade, which is one that kind of, it's funny because it also can jump into both. Also a heavy bow gun. Like, even though some things I said were in the previous section, they still apply here. Like using basic ammo is different than using a different ammo for your bow gun, so it contributes to different types of damage, and so you want more raw damage for that basic ammo. So slower, heavy hitting things want high raw damage because it doesn't bifurcate their damage across a bunch of different damage values. Higher hitting, low damage weapons want those juicy elements to take advantage of, to pull more out of every single hit, but also stack of statuses so that you can get things to sleep, paralysis, not to be confused with sleep paralysis, which makes for scary demons, poison, and all sorts of fun things. So that's a general rule of thumb when it comes to your weapons. Now for your armor, it's kind of the same thing in the sense that you want to follow what you're using with your weapons. So I'm focusing on Rathalos because this gives me, of course, why would I do that? This is going to give me Adrenaline Rush, Evade Window, and Constitution. Let's take a look at those really quick. Evade Window extends the invulnerability period when evading. I'm using dual blades and bow, so both of those have really strong evade mechanics built into the weapons. So, and they have really drastic evades too, right? So this is going to help me. Constitution reduces stamina depletion when evading, blocking, or doing certain other actions. Certain other actions would include using your demon stance, demon down, archdemon, demon town, whatever the hell it's called, for your dual blades, right? So this helps that. Rathalos Flare, chance to deal additional fire attack damage after landing an attack, because I'm going to use elemental attacks. My bow is fire right now. Scaling Prowess makes it easier to mount monsters and to wound them when once mounted. This can be nice with dual blades. It was just kind of there. I didn't really care about it, but this is an example here. Adrenaline Rush again. Temporarily increases attack power after executing a perfectly timed evade just as a monster attacks. It's just built into both my weapons. Okay, that's all the same thing. So this gives you a sense. Try to build towards what you're doing with your weapons. We talked about... Burst is a pretty cool one. Continuously landing hits gradually increases attack and elemental attack. This is really good for dual blades too. Earplugs grants protection from large monster roar. Bleeding resistance, earplugs, burst again, divine blessing allows us to basically you don't get knocked down, has a predetermined chance of reducing the damage you take. Never mind, I thought that was something else. I'm thinking of something from a food. Where is another one here? Heroics is a cool example. So increases attack power and defense when health drops to 35% or lower. Are you tanking a ton? Are you going to be really taking tons of damage? Well, this is going to give you a lot of bonuses here, right? So attack plus 30% and defense increasing effects are negated while active all the way at the bottom. So you get the sense here. Choose things that fit the weapons you're using. And don't be afraid to mix and match. That's a big part of this too, right? Or you know what? Also look for things that give you specific resistance bonuses. Here you go, water resistance. This is going to just outright increase your water resistance. If you were to stack it to 3, it makes you immune to water blight. So take advantage of all these things that, like I said, from the majority of these sets too, it requires you to do 4 items or 3 items. So maybe you're focusing on the group skill, the set bonus, whatever it is. Try and just mix and match these to make sense. Here's another example. Latent Power is going to help temporarily increases affinity, my crit damage, and reduces stamina depletion when certain conditions are met. Those certain conditions are going to be happening all the time because I am using stamina out the ass. Constitution, which we talked about, Latent Power. So all sorts of stuff. I was using one too that helped out with guarding, and I can't remember what one it was. But like that's just a further example here. Oh, here it is. No, Hair Bomb is the ice resistance one. Evade extender. Never mind. I thought I was so smart, but I guess I am not the smartest person in the world. alloy. Quick sheath, tremor resistance, harder to get knocked down, stuff like that. So it's like just socket these in to fit what your focus is, and I promise you'll start to find this stuff clicking. It's really overwhelming at first, and that's totally normal. This game in general is filled with menus and clustered menus and sub menus, and there's so much crap. You spend so much time on Reddit, on forums, on all of these articles that tell you to change this little minute setting where you're like, who the hell decided to put that setting into the game to begin with? There's a lot of control that you actually have over this game. It's just a matter of cracking into it and getting your hands on it. And once you do, I promise this game will really unfold for you and you'll really click with it a little bit better if you're struggling to survive or struggling to do really good damage. Knowing these little tips here should hopefully help you out. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any tips of your own when it comes to weapons and armor and upgrading, let it be known in the comment section. I've tried to give you as much information as possible, but maybe there's some really good, just hard-hitting ones that I'm not the best Monster Hunter player, not in the world here, not even by a long shot. So I'm happy to have as much information disseminated out to the people as possible. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.